Trojan Sports Now.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Trojan Sports Now. I'm Jahmal Kennedy.
And I'm Renfrow. Stick around as we bring you the latest news and scores from Troy athletics. Good evening, Trojan fans. What a weekend it was in Trojan sports, and what better way to start off tonight with a little Trojan football. Now, as we already heard, the Trojans were in action on Saturday against the #2 ranked Clemson Tigers in Death Valley. And just to reiterate this, the Trojans were the #1 trending topic on Twitter with over 27,000 tweets. And the underdog Trojans, a team capturing the spotlight away from the field, took the Tigers all the way to the very end.
Our guys in the locker room know that we're going to compete till the end.
Whether you were in Death Valley rooting on the Trojans or watching from back home in Trojan territory, you saw a Trojan football team that did in fact compete to the very end against the Clemson Tigers. It was a game that ended with the Tigers on top by a final score of 30-24. And though Coach Brown says it's never okay to lose, it's no question the Trojans came ready to play.
So I think our kids are proud of what they accomplished. I mean, they put themselves on the national scene, and it's been a while. We did a great job controlling the clock in the first half. We had it, I think 16, 17 minutes compared to 11 or 12 for them.
And in that first half, true freshman running back Jabir Fry rushed for a 66-yard touchdown on a 4th-and-1 play, tying the game up at 10.
You can always feel the tide turning when you're playing such a talented team, and I felt like that was a point where the tide was starting to turn.
It's hard to see Fry down there, So he took it to the house, and I was so excited. And I think it was his first touchdown in Clemson.
And from Fry's touchdown, the Trojans went into the half down 13-10. And after trailing 27-10, the Trojans came roaring back, with Silvers connecting with DeAndre Douglas for 2 touchdowns. And though those 2 touchdowns wouldn't be enough, Coach Brown says this loss is a pivotal game for the rest of the season.
Is this going to be a game that we rally around and build on for the future, or is this going to be just a close loss? Because it's not okay to lose, but if our kids will continue to get better, keep believing, then we've got a chance to be a really good football team down the stretch.
Junior quarterback Brandon Silvers finished with 233 passing yards on 24 completions and a pair of touchdowns. And sophomore DeAndre Douglas hauled in 11 receptions for 93 yards. And as for that Trojan defense, they recorded 5 tackles for a loss.
And it's only been a few days now since the Trojan football team took down the then #2 team in the land all the way to the wire. In a game that marked the Trojans as the underdog, head coach Neil Brown and his team lost by only a touchdown, a final score of 30-24. And if you ask the players how they felt about the game, they'll say yes, it was a tough loss, but also the experience of a lifetime. Rod Renfrow has more.
I've always dreamed of playing in big crowds in front of big stadiums in front of big crowds.
And it's Jabir Fry.
Like a dream come true.
It was good, man. I mean, it's something that you dream of as a kid, just playing in that type of environment.
It was sweet, It was 8,000 people, I think, was the total amount of people. It was a great atmosphere.
And with an atmosphere packed full of Tigers and Trojans, Silvers comments on the intensity down on the field.
Really wasn't loud like I expected it to be the whole game because it was such a close game. And but when it got loud, it was really loud. It was hard to communicate at times, but I think overall we did pretty good at communication.
Head coach Neil Brown says Saturday's game against the Tigers and this weekend's game against Southern Miss is a good test for this Trojan team and the progress of the program.
Coming off a game that we played the #2 team in the country right down to the wire, and now we're going to go play a team that I think is going to be a really good measuring stick for our program and find out, have we gotten over the hump or do we still have a ways to go?
And as for getting over that hump, the Trojans say it all starts with preparation.
I believe it all starts at practice. So if we can go to practice with the right mindset to feed off of what just happened this past weekend, I think we'll be all right.
The Trojan football team is preparing for its next opponent this Saturday, the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. But before we get into this weekend's game, let's take a look at what happened after Saturday's game against the Clemson Tigers.
Great to know that we have a huge fan base behind us.
After falling to the #2 ranked Clemson Tigers on Saturday afternoon, the Trojan football team began its journey back to Trojan territory. And after a few quick scrolls through social media, it didn't take long for the Trojans to see what was waiting for them back home. 400+ Troy students and fans gathered near the field house in support of their Trojan team.
Coming back from a loss, so that's real big. Can't wait to see what the future holds for us and the fan base we have.
A lot of stuff on Twitter I saw, and when we pulled up, they were going crazy. It was just a good student. There's a lot of students there, it's a great thing to come back to after you know, a long game, but it was great for all of them coming out, supporting us.
I know something our kids took a lot of pride in.
And when he's on campus interacting with students, Coach Brown says there is no shortage of the Trojan spirit.
I'm really proud on this campus. I carry a lot of Troy T-shirts around with me, and I've had to give very few out for people having other schools' colors and other schools' shirts on campus right now, and I take a lot of pride in that.
If you didn't hear us say this earlier, the Trojans were the #1 trending topic on Twitter for most of the afternoon on Saturday with close to 27,000 tweets.
And along with the football team, the Trojans soccer team was also in action over the weekend. The Trojans fell to the #1 ranked Florida State Seminoles in overtime by a final score of 1-0. Head coach Jason Hamilton shares his thoughts on Sunday's game.
I think that was, you know, regardless of how that game the outcome came, we knew we were just going to go into that moment and enjoy that moment and learn from it. So I think the fact that we went to overtime and lost 1-0, it really gave us extra confidence than we would have had. And now we can just kind of focus on fixing our offensive woes and see if we can, you know, get 2 wins here at home where we're comfortable playing at.
There are always positives to take away from matches like this, including the Trojans taking Florida State to overtime. The Seminoles had not been taken to overtime by a non-conference opponent since the 2014 regular season.
And the Trojan volleyball team at the court this weekend over in Montgomery, and it's safe to say head coach Sonny Kirkpatrick and his Trojans had a pretty successful weekend. The Trojans got the weekend started with a 3-1 victory over Alabama State on Friday. Then in Saturday's doubleheader, the Trojans picked up right where they left off, downing Chicago State by a final of 3-1 and sending Savannah State home packing with its 11th loss on the season. With the 3 wins over the weekend, the Trojans then set at an overall record of 5-4 on the year.
Now let's get into Tuesday night's action in Birmingham, where the Trojan volleyball team faced off against the Blazers of UAB. Head coach Sonny Kirkpatrick and his Trojans fell in the first set by a score of 25-21, then recovered in the second and third sets, going on a 7-1 run, and the third to go up 2-1 on the Blazers. But in the fourth set, the Blazers posted 16 kills, winning 25-20 and tying the matchup at 2 apiece. And in the fifth and final set, the Trojans took a 2-0 lead from the get-go, but it was the Blazers who fought back, clinching the set 15-12. Senior Sarah Landis had a monster game for the Trojans, posting 19 kills, a career high.
The Trojan cross-country team has gotten off to a positive start to its 2016 season. Over the weekend, the Trojans were back in action down in Mobile at the Azalea City Classic and finished with 3 head-to-head victories. In the 8K, the Trojans took down Alabama State, Southeast Louisiana, and South Alabama. And on the women's side, Troy Samantha Smith, Erica Culp, and Sarah Zilstra all finished in the top 20 in the 5K. Head coach Elliott Blount takes a look at performances from both the men and women and says overall the Trojans competed pretty well.
I think it went pretty well. So on the women's side, we figured out that, you know, there's something going on within. It's not really necessarily the training. So I challenged them all to, you know, do a little bit of soul searching and find out what they really want to get out of this season. The men, they put together 2 solid performances, something that, you know, hasn't been done in my tenure here. So that was very nice to see. So we're building on the momentum that we kind of gained in practice.
The Troy men's golf team, a team that had been in action all day Monday and Tuesday at the Invitational at the Ocean Course, were tied for 10th place overall in the tournament after shooting a combined 3 over par in the first 2 rounds. Senior Clayton Vanoy led the way for the Trojans on day 1, shooting a pair of under par rounds, but the Trojans finished with an even round of 288, tied for the lowest of the day in the 16-team field.
So to come on Trojan Sports Now, we'll have a preview of the Trojan football team's matchup this weekend against Southern Miss.
But first, Ryan Renfrow sits down with soccer's freshman defender Nicole Strahl. Stick around, more Trojan Sports Now is coming your way.